you became a dancer, and choreography came into the picture very early.
As I have said, my first year at the ballet school, I went to Betty Oliphant, who was the director and the co-founder of the ballet school, and I said, I really would rather make up dances than learn this technique. And she's very, very calmly said, I think it would be better if you learned more about the technique before you did that. But that was in an era where the idea that anybody was going to be a choreographer was like, we were always told there may be one man in each generation. Every 30 years, a choreographer might come out of this. Yeah. And that sort of, I think, started a bit of a dream that, well, wouldn't that be interesting if that could, no, it could never be me.
And it's
you. And it actually was me, but now the world has changed a lot, and creativity has become so much more a part of what people are learning. But I did my first pieces. It wasn't a complete. I didn't run a company when I was 10 years old, but we made up dances at lunch hour that were very much stolen from what we were seeing the National Ballet of Canada do. So my first piece was a sort of Balanchine-esque thing to the same music that he used, with things that you tried to learn the steps when you watched it, and then when you didn't know the steps, you just made up stuff that was kind of like that at the level that you're working. But it got performed at the school closing, and I remember standing there and getting a lot of applause and going, gee, this, like, really? Did this just happen? And so that made them think of me, even as a 10-year-old, I think that let's just keep an eye on that. And there were workshops going on. It was the 60s, and there was a man named Grant Stratty who was at the school, and he was the first choreographer, the resident choreographer, the emeritus of the National Ballet. I would call him that. Nobody else does. And there was a very creative generation, about 5, 6 years older than me. So I was seeing that in front of me, and so that by the time I got to grade 9, grade 10. It made sense that one would keep expanding in that way. So I was fortunate. That went away, actually, soon after.
Your years in Montreal, what did they change into the picture?
Well, I did the choreographic seminar, and that really introduced me, really pushed me really hard into that, because when I went to the choreographic seminar, I was the ballet choreographer, but everybody was in bare feet. I mean, nobody was wearing shoes at that point, or socks. Socks hadn't entered the picture yet. And we kept being given assignments, and I'd be given groups of people, and I went, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. You have to work with what's in front of you. We'd be solving these assignments when you do 15 over 3 weeks, and you do a piece a day, which was an incredible way to sort of push stuff out, and you had to work on your instincts and work quickly. So by the time I got to Montreal, I think I was lucky enough that Le Grand Ballet was open to me choreographing there. But I also met, quite quickly almost, through Vincent Warren, who's another sort of very major sort of figure who had an event, and he invited a lot of Edward Locke, I'm not sure who the other ones, Linda Rabin, all of these people became the circle of people who were around me. And everything just gave me permission to try. And in Toronto, in Toronto, it was the sort of, what do you call it? It was the arena where they said, if you can't write it down, you can't make a dance out of it. And I started to live, no, I think I want to see how I do it, if it really is coming from inner feeling, and how I move and how I see people move, and the things I'd learned in Banff, and also the things I learned about collaboration through the Banff choreographic seminar. And so I thought, you must risk working with composers. You have to do it. And I thought, oh my God, I can collaborate with a person and not with my record player. It would be a live person. And I met such great people. I had 2 composers named Michael Baker for some odd reason. And the first 5 years in Montreal were just an amazing sort of opening up of being allowed to do what I wanted to do, and there being a great openness about what can you do next, and
Yes.
and not feeling constantly
Because
held back.